Mark Rogers TV looking at the NFL draft. The Clemson Tigers with 5 selected over the weekend, and with one of the better football teams in America this past season with just 2 losses and the Orange Bowl victory over Ohio State. This should not have been unexpected, and of course the Clemson Tigers get one of the best players in the country drafted to the Buffalo Bills, and that's where we'll start with Ryan Kantor of Clemson 24/7. Ryan, Sammy Watkins seems to be just about the surest thing in the draft, taken by the Buffalo Bills. The Bills sitting down at 9. They felt so secure about Watkins' ability. They jump all the way up to number 4, trade with the Cleveland Browns, give up the number 1 position for them in 2015. So, of course, Sammy Watkins goes to Buffalo, and the Bills have to love this guy.
Yes, he's obviously very talented, and as you said, he's as close to as a sure thing as you're going to get. And given what they gave up to get him, that needs to be the case. To move from 9 to 4, they gave up. Obviously, they gave up the 9 to get to 4, but they also gave up a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick the next year. So what they're really banking on is getting to the playoffs this year, and those picks not being quite as early. I think that's really what they're saying when they're making this move. And I don't think it's completely unreasonable either. They've got E.J. Manuel, who's starting to come along. They've got Spiller. Now they've got Watkins. They signed Mike Williams from Tampa Bay. They have Mario Williams from NC State. So they've got a pretty good core. They know they have some issues on the offensive line, and they address that by drafting 3 offensive linemen. So they're really going all in, and they'll be fun to watch. I know, obviously, they're in upstate New York, but they'll have a lot of fans in the upstate of South Carolina because they have 6 Clemson alum on the team now. It's kind of amazing. They have Sammy Watkins and C.J. Spiller, of course. They also have Antoine McLean, who he's pretty far down the depth chart, and he could get cut, I suppose. But they have him, Chris Hairston also on the offensive line, Jonathan Meeks is a backup safety, and Darius Robinson, a cornerback, signed as an undrafted free agent. So they have 6 Clemson Tigers on their roster as of right now, which is pretty astounding. So they'll be going in looking to end that playoff drought. They haven't made it since 1999. So hopefully Watkins will they're hoping that Watkins will break that streak for them.
Yes, and those people familiar with the Music City Miracle, that was the last time the Buffalo Bills were on a football field playing for a playoff game, and they lost in the final seconds when the Tennessee Titans pulled off the miracle, marched on to the Super Bowl from there. A bit of a misnomer, I think, that warm weather players can't move on to colder climates and play well. We see it time and time again where guys who have lived in the South their entire lives drafted by cold weather teams and perform rather well, and the Clemson or the Buffalo Bills certainly aren't hesitant about selecting players from the South, in particular the Clemson Tigers there. Sammy Watkins, from a national perspective, Ryan, that I take here, obviously burst onto the scene. He was a monster. He was a beast, to the point that as a freshman and as a wide receiver burst onto the Heisman Trophy scene, as you well know, got into the talk, 82 catches, I believe, 18 touchdowns that freshman season. Had some issues off the field, also tweaked an ankle, I believe, as a sophomore, had a down season. It's kind of remarkable to believe that a player of his talent and with Tajh Boyd at quarterback and all the weapons around him only caught 3 touchdowns as a sophomore. So very much in question at that point, but to see him recommit himself to football, really bounce back and become one of the dominant players in college football that junior season, I think speaks volumes for him, that he was able to right himself, commit himself back to football, have an outstanding season culminated by that dominant performance against Ohio State in the Orange Bowl. What has not been dominant are Clemson offensive linemen. When we think Clemson, at least I do, I think outside linebackers, defensive ends, offensive talent, especially on the outside on offense. Brandon Thomas, selected in the 3rd round by San Francisco at offensive guard.
Yes, he was picked with the last pick of the 3rd round. He's actually Clemson's first offensive lineman drafted in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft since the 70s. So it's huge for Clemson. You know, when you see that, that's big for recruiting. You sell recruits on your ability to get players into the NFL, among other things. So Clemson's really building an outstanding offensive line class, and for Brandon Thomas to get drafted this high certainly helps that cause moving forward. He's really fortunate to be going there. Obviously, the 49ers are an outstanding franchise, a very good team right now. They've got a lot of talent, a lot of young players, so they have the luxury of essentially redshirting players. They did it with Marcus Lattimore last year, And that's what they're planning to do with Brandon Thomas. They'll be able to get healthy next year, and they don't need to rush him to play. And he'll play when he's 100%, and that may not be next year at all. So that's a great situation for him to be on.
Okay, Ryan, next we've got Bashaud Breeland at cornerback going to Washington in the 4th round. Looking at Clemson football just a few years ago, and I think this was the microcosm, was that Orange Bowl performance against West Virginia when the defense got shredded. That's always been the thought about Clemson football, superior offensive play, especially in the last few years, the defense a few steps behind. Breeland, one of those guys that has brought Clemson defense back to respectability.
Yeah, so since Brent Venables has come over, the defense has gotten better, and Breeland has been one of Clemson's better cornerbacks in recent years. He's 5'11", and he ran a 4.62 40 at the combine. So his measurables aren't outstanding, but that wasn't something that was going to improve with another year with his senior season. So don't really blame him for leaving early. That's, wasn't something where he was going to improve his stock tremendously with another year. He'll go into a situation, the Redskins, where they don't have a lot of depth at cornerback. So that's an advantageous position to be in. He'll probably start off as more of a depth player, maybe a nickel corner. D'Angelo Hall's there. And David Amerson, who, interestingly, he was at NC State while Mike Reed was the defensive backs coach. Mike Reed has since come over to Clemson and coached Bashaud Breeland. So he'll be competing with him for a starting role, but more likely he'll be a depth player, at least for his rookie season, and he'll definitely have a chance to get on the field.
Ryan, now we get to the guy that college football fans know about, if they're really hardcore college football fans, especially, of course, Clemson and also the ACC, but NFL people who start to draft these guys and start to look at these possible draftees around February and March and into April, the tape really jumped out at these guys. Martavis Bryant, Pittsburgh, takes him at wide receiver in the 4th round. Martavis Bryant, a bit of an enigma, but when you watch the tape, he looks like he could be a sleeper.
Yeah, he definitely has loads of talent. He's very tall. He's very fast. He has the talent to be a first-rounder. I personally thought he should come back for a senior season. Have an opportunity to be the feature receiver in Clemson's hurry-up, no-huddle offense, and he has the talent to be a first-rounder. But a lot of people criticize his work ethic his first 2 years, and even in his junior season, he was really pushed by Mike Williams early. He played very, very poorly against UGA in the season opener, multiple drops, and so he was starting to lose playing time, but he really turned it on late, had a tremendous game against Georgia Tech, made some outstanding catches against Ohio State in the Orange Bowl, and really shot up the draft boards. There was some chatter about him going as early as late 2nd, 3rd round, but he ended up going the 4th. And although that probably lends credence to what Coach Dabo Swinney says about don't go early unless you're a lock for the 1st round, but for him, he goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a huge opportunity for him because Mike Wallace left last offseason, Emmanuel Sanders left this offseason, so they have Antonio Brown. Heath Miller's a good tight end, but really he's got a wide open shot to be a starting wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger throwing to him. So he could really come in immediately and make a huge impact at one of the best franchises in the NFL. So although he could have went higher with another year, you can't find much better landing spot than the one he found for his particular position. So great spot for him.
Yeah, Martavis Bryant, 7 touchdown receptions, 42 overall. You mentioned the 2 catches against Ohio State. His last 2 touchdown catches of his collegiate career were outstanding. The ball was thrown to his wrong shoulder in the back of the right corner. He twisted around, took it off pretty much the helmet of the defensive back, and then the other one, he reached out and tipped it to himself and simultaneously stepped in bounds with the defender on him and kept control of the football. 2 outstanding catches by Martavis Bryant there. Well, Ryan, as you well know, sometimes the highest draft picks aren't necessarily the most known, and the reverse works in effect as well. So we've got Tajh Boyd, who's been the face of this program for his tenure at Clemson for 4 years. Well, he's selected in the 6th round by the New York Jets, who have plenty of quarterbacks on the roster that have name value, but not necessarily are in a position to win this job. So he's going to possibly have an opportunity to vie for the starting quarterback job with the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think they'll start. I think what the Jets really are hoping for is that Geno Smith, who's actually friends with, or at least friendly with Tajh Boyd, will hang on to the starting role and really establish himself. Michael Vick will be the second string guy, and he's actually somewhat of a mentor for Tajh Boyd. Interestingly, they're both from Virginia, so they know each other and they've helped each other. So I think the situation he's looking at is learn from Michael Vick, learn as much as he can and improve and get better. Meanwhile, he'll be competing with Matt Sims in that third string role. Matt Sims is a Tennessee graduate, so they'll battle for that role. And then eventually, when Michael Vick retires, Tajh Boyd could slot up to that role. And Geno Smith, I certainly think he's a very talented player, but he's no Aaron Rodgers. He could certainly lose a starting job. So if Boyd can get in there, improve over time, and become a second string option behind Geno Smith, I think it's a quality opportunity for him. He's also has a great relationship with Rex Ryan already. Rex Ryan's son, Seth Ryan, is a walk-on wide receiver at Clemson.
Ryan Kantor does some outstanding work for Clemson 24/7. You can follow him on Twitter as well. That's Ryan Kantor, Kantor with a K. Ryan, thanks so much for the insight and the information on Clemson football.
Thank you as always. We appreciate it.